The opening contest of the Rugby Championship just concluded and South Africa defeated 38 points to 22 after leading 22-0. I have no idea what happened in the second half for the Springboks, but it was some great work from Australia, some massive errors from the Boks, and now we head into match number 2 with a lot of unanswered questions about what is going to happen next in this Rugby Championship comp. But in this review, we're going to be looking through at, of course, what went well for these two sides, what maybe didn't go as nicely as they would have liked, and also, like I said, selections, what's coming up next for Rassie Erasmus as well as Joe Schmidt as they head towards the second test. But jumping straight into it, quick start for South Africa. 90 seconds was all it took for Kurtley Arendse to cross the try line, and it was just some very nice build-up play from the South Africans. That can be said about the Andre Esterhuizen and the Siya Kolisi tries. They just seemed in control. They were passing brilliantly. The clean-outs and the breakdown were working well. The cohesion between the backs and the forwards was perfect. And then it just seemed to hit a wall in that matchup. Not a lot happening, some knock-ons, couple penalties, and then Australia started their ascent. 29th minute, we saw Dylan Peach score himself a try. Now, not too long after that, his jaw kind of came off his face, so he went off the field. But from there, Callaway came on. He had some good breaks in his own right. Other tries for the Australians. We did see Harry Wilson got himself the double, also ended up injured after scoring that 64th minute try. Suali'i got an interception in the 59th minute. Jorgensen scored in the 66th. And Tom Wright scored in the 75th. But two of those tries from Australia came back-to-back within maybe 90 seconds of each other. And with this end score being 38 points to 22, Australia actually got themselves a bonus point from this game. So they sit with the full 5 available, 0 points on the board currently for South Africa on the table. But in terms of players who stepped up for the South Africans, we saw a huge amount of Peter Steph du Toit. He was still battling out there on the field even when South Africa were starting to struggle. Eben Etzebeth, he had a very busy game in that number 4 jersey. I actually think they took Lutiaga off a little bit too early. He was doing very well in that first half. He was the support runner. He was the first receiver. And anytime he was touching that ball right next to the breakdown, it seemed to just create a backline movement that eventually led to a line break. So maybe if there was one criticism in terms of when the subs were made, I'd say that Diacha going off when he did seemed like the wrong mistake. Malcolm Marx, he had some good moments, but also got heavily penalised in the breakdown, as well as not the best line-out accuracy for the Springboks throughout this game. Scrums, we didn't see a huge amount of them, so sadly didn't see much of that Wilco Low and Oxton Shag combo in the scrum. And then also in the backline, some pretty solid performances from Arendse. Esterhuizen, he had some good moments. Creel, he was solid enough. The thing is, for a lot of these guys in the South African lineup, and this is why this game is so utterly confusing, they didn't actually play that bad, some of these players. And in fact, on another given day, if it was more than just the first 20 minutes that we saw the Springboks scoring points for, you know, they could have racked up 5-6 tries in this game, which is why it's so, like I said, confusing as to how the end score resulted with South Africa still on the 22. Apalele Fasi, he was probably one of the worst players in the backline for South Africa. Didn't seem fully committed in that 15 jersey, but still, I wouldn't say it was an awful performance from that man. Marty Libok, first half, he was looking very strong. Second half, it fell apart that little bit more, but I also think that Australia deserve a huge amount of credit for how they played throughout this game. A lot of sides going into the changing shed at halftime, 22 points to 5 down, they would have said, nah, this one's not happening for Australia. It's just another Saturday, unfortunately, at times for that Wallabies team. So they went out there and they just found that next gear, and the Boks kept on making those errors that allowed the Wallabies to really thrive. Harry Wilson, he was outstanding throughout this match. The big man putting his body on the line. A lot of carries, a lot of behind-the-scenes work in the breakdown, as well as making tackles for him. Just a massive shame that he ended up with that injury at the end. Fraser McWright, his breakdown work, did get a couple crucial turnovers. Same with Tom Hooper winning that turnover right on his own goal line was a massive momentum shifter for the Australians. James O'Connor, he built into that number 10 role quite nicely. Looked shaky at the start, partnering with Nick White, but perhaps that will be what they go with in next week's game as well. Jorgensen was solid out on the wing with some very good moments for that man. And then Lena Cattell, pretty busy in that number 12 jersey. But what does this mean for these two sides? For the Australians, they may make a couple changes heading into the second test match, mainly due to injury. But for South Africa, Rassie Erasmus, a man who is normally firmly in control, now has a really big decision to make about the second test lineup. Who are the guys that maybe didn't perform in this match? Are there certain players who are outside of his current Rugby Championship squad that could have filled the role a little bit better? We will soon know a couple injury concerns as well from before this match for South Africa, but overall, just a game that from start to finish felt very weird. I think is the best way to say it. I don't know how else to describe it because, it went from a game that seemed certain that South Africa had it in the bag to now Australia winning by 16 points, which also, I should mention, gives them a massive boost on the World Rugby rankings. Currently, South Africa are third in the standings now, and even if New Zealand were to lose to Argentina, they are still on enough points that they would stay as the number one. It builds a different kind of hype for the matches up against the All Blacks, and like I said, a lot of questions that we now need answers to. But I do thank you all very much for tuning in. Of course, do let me know what you thought of this game. I know for a fact some people actually went to sleep when the Springboks were leading by a large margin, so if you're waking up just now and you're seeing this end score, what are your thoughts? What happened? I think that's going to be a question that we ask ourselves, and a lot of people will be asking in the very near future. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We'll be back for that match between the All Blacks and the Pumas as well, so be sure to check that out, and I will see you all for the next one.